Hi, today I'm going to be doing some upgrades on my OneUp Components version 2 dropper post. The two upgrades that I'm going to be doing are I'm going to be fitting their oversized guide pins, and I'm also going to be fitting their 2.1 rebuild kit. So here's everything that I'm going to be using. So first of all, you've got the guide pins, which just come with two different sets. It's actually 6 pins. I'll show you them in a second, obviously, once I get them out, and some grease. And then here's the rebuild kit. This comes with the new style midcap, some bushings, some grease, and then some guide pins. And here's the tools that I'm going to be using. I've got a strap wrench. You don't specifically need this, but it can make getting the midcap off easier. I've got a shock pump, adjustable spanner. I believe it's a 17mm that it needs, some Allen keys, and then some form of cleaner. It's going to be this version 2, and it's a 240mm dropper. Just open these kits up. So it comes with the new midcap. This has the SKF seals. This was one of the weak areas on the version 2, hence why I'm swapping it out. So as you can see, it's got a bushing inside and then the seal at the top. They've changed the pattern on the side of it slightly. So here's the original 2, and then here's the 2.1. As you can see, it's got a slightly different seal to it. The problem with this one is that the mud and grease tended to sit in this lip, whereas this one is a flatter one. SKF seals are generally pretty good, so hopefully this should be alright. And then you've got two different bushings, upper and lower, and you've got the brass guide pins, obviously some grease. And onto the pin kit. Got the standard brass pins that come with the kit and are actually in the post. The way they've set this up is they've given themselves a little bit of tolerance, so there can be quite a lot of play side to side depending on your particular frame. And on my pivot Firebird I've got quite a lot of slop, so that's the reason I wanted to try these oversized pins. I've used them on a couple of other bikes and I found them to eliminate most of the play side to side. So you get 6 pins here. Here's the two different types. 3 of them have 2 lines on, and then 3 of them have 4 lines on. So you've got the original, the 2 line and the 4 line, and obviously they just get slightly thicker just to fill in the gap. As I say, I've used them on a couple of different bikes, and they do recommend that you start with the 2. I found that I can usually get away with the 4 straight away, but they do recommend that you use the 2 line version first. All these upgrades can be done with the seat post left in the bike frame. Now I'm going to take the seat post out because I want to show you the lower tube getting cleaned, but if you wish to leave it in place you can just do that. Now what you do is just take the saddle off, the lock ring and the midcap, and then the upper tube will come away and you can replace the midcap, the pins and then the bushings, and then slide it back into place and you're good to go, and you haven't had to take your cable out or mess around with the height of it. The only thing I would say for that is make sure that you have a clean area, because if you do drop something it can be a bit inconvenient. It's one of the reasons I just prefer to take it out of the frame, but it is nice that you have the option to be able to do it in the frame. Alright, so starting with this post, first of all you've got to remove the air cap, which is at the top here. Then you've got a little nut at the top here. They recommend that you use needle nose pliers and put them on either side. I've found that you can get away with a 2mm Allen key most of the time. It's usually not on that tight. And then you can just spin it. And obviously you want to extend the post. Next we're just going to disassemble the post. So you just get your spanner, pop it on the end. What I tend to do is just grip the saddle end in my hand and then just twist. It'll just come undone at the bottom. It's usually not on very tight, but obviously that depends. Sometimes it might be. And once that unthreads, you should just be able to pull it straight out. Next you've got to remove the mid cap. So you can sometimes do this by hand, but sometimes it's a little bit stiff. So just use a cloth to get a bit of additional friction. And that should undo the mid cap. And you can just rotate that. And then it just pulls apart. So you've got the lower section, upper section, and as you can see, here's the bushings, the guide pins, and then the mid cap. So what we can do is remove these, clean it off, and replace this. It's not too bad, this actually. Get your 3 pins, just clean that off. Take off your bushings. They're split, so they should just come straight off. And then the mid cap should just slide straight off. Just quickly check this shaft for any damage, make sure it's nice and clean. What you want to do is obviously check in this lower section as well. It's obviously going to be full of grease, but if there's any dirt in there, you want to clean that out. So I just run a cloth through it. So make sure that's nice and clean. Main bit is to make sure that these threads are clean, because mud can get trapped in here. Make sure that's all cleaned out. So got the top and bottom clean, and just wipe the cartridge clean, just to make sure there's no excess dirt or grease on here. At the top of this cartridge is a little O-ring washer. Make sure that doesn't fall off when you're putting it back together. So what I'm going to do is just grease the inside of this mid cap. So you want to get plenty inside there. So you want to stop as much mud and grit from going in as possible. Let's just slide the mid cap back on. Then you just push that on. Make sure that the lip of the seal is not pinched in any way, and it's moving up and down the post nice and smoothly. Put the bushings on now, just add a little bit of grease on there, and then say it's split ring, so it just pops on, rotates round, then put the upper one. So yeah, I like to just put a little bit of grease on the inside. Just going to put the upper bushing in. Again, make sure that it's not catching on anything, moving nice and smoothly. And then just get your pins and just place them in. So I use a little bit of extra grease just to hold them in place so they don't slide out when you're putting it back together. The way it works is you have the guide pins here, and they go either side of the OneUp logo. Just push that in, and then just rotate it. It should just slip straight in. And you can tighten the mid cap up. Then we're just going to feed the cartridge back in. So I like to put a little bit of grease on this lower section here, just on the rod. Not too much, just a little bit. And a little bit on the inside. This isn't actually moving, but just a little bit on the inside. And then you just feed the cartridge in. You just want to push that up. You might have to put some more thread lock on if this has come loose, but this should be alright, and it doesn't need to be very tight. Just going to nip this up, and just going to get your spanner. So it doesn't have to be excessively tight, just nip it up. Then we're just going to put the cap back in. So I don't like to do it too tight. It generally doesn't come loose. Just going to check the return speed on this. Seems alright. If it's a bit slow, obviously you can check the pressure in the top. It's handy to do it while the post's out now. I'll just quickly do this I usually run it about 250 to 300. So as you see, mine's at 257. So probably just put a little bit extra in. Yeah, so I'll probably run mine about 280. That should be enough for me. And just check the return speed now. Yeah, that's fine for me. So once you've got the pressure up, just put your little valve cap back on. And then I'm just going to clean off any excess grease that's on the post. And then I'm going to fit the saddle and clamp back on. So I'll just give this a clean. It's got a little bit of mud on. I'll not bore you with that, but I'll put this back on the bike and we'll see how it looks in operation. Just going to take a look at the side-to-side play on this saddle now that the oversized pins are fitted. So at full extension, there's virtually no side-to-side play, as well as forward and backwards, there's no play there. I'll just drop the saddle. Now there's generally some extra play when it's at the bottom, as you can see there is here, which is not too much of a problem because it's generally out of the way and I'm not sitting on it, and it's usually at full extension that I want it to be play free, so that's absolutely fine. And we'll just see what the return speed's like. I've been using these kits for a few months now, and the oversized pins have helped reduce the amount of play that's on this dropper, and then the new midcap with the new SKF seal has done an excellent job in terms of reducing the amount of friction, and it does a great job of keeping the mud out, whereas the previous design tended to get a little bit gummy and then the post could get a little bit sticky. I found that this one tends to run much smoother. Now obviously I don't think this is going to be quite as smooth as the new version 3 of the dropper, but it's a small investment, so it's a nice upgrade if you've already got an existing post. That was a look at the OneUp Components oversized pins and their 2.1 rebuild kit. If you've got any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them in the box below, and if you got this far into the video, I do appreciate it, and thanks for watching.